This next story really bothers me. The Trump administration has instituted a new rule that would give homeless shelters the ability to turn away trans people, trans women and trans men. It's significantly disturbing when you consider the number or the percentage of trans individuals, trans people who are homeless at some point in their lives. I believe the percentage is around 1/3. 1 out of 3 trans people will be homeless at some point in their life. And the Trump administration has taken it upon itself to give homeless shelters the option. Previously, the Obama administration took away that ability in order to protect trans people. And this is what Donald Trump is doing in response. I want to read the actual rule. This is the actual rule that they are instituting. It says, quote, "The proposed rule permits shelter providers to consider a range of factors in making such determinations, including privacy, safety, practical concerns, religious beliefs, and any considerations under civil rights and non-discrimination authorities." And relevant considerations, rather. The individual's sex as reflected in official government documents, as well as the gender which a person identifies with. The proposed rule does not dictate a required basis for making determinations other than they be consistent with an overall policy. So that last line is the kicker, right? The hand is pretty bad, but the kicker is the fact that the rules will not require any basis for making these determinations, just so long as you have some rules written out. So long as you have a consistent overall policy of discrimination, it's totally okay for you to discriminate against trans people and leave them out in the cold, homeless. Because we have an unbelievable amount of homeless people in general, but an unbelievable percentage of trans individuals who are at some point in their life homeless. But it's cool so long as you have that policy written down, according to the Trump administration. I want to read one response to it. The proposal published Wednesday would roll back Obama-era protections to prevent single-sex shelters from discriminating on the basis of sexual orientation and gender identity. So this particularly comes into play for shelters that are single gender. Here's the thing, and how conservatives will always spin this and have always spun this. They always spin this as the big bad boogeyman trans woman who sneaks into a bathroom, a woman's bathroom, to do something nefarious and insidious, right? But they completely neglect the fact that if you put a trans woman into an all-male facility, then they themselves are exposed to tremendous violence and violation. And so they never give any regard to the life of that individual. And they always create this boogeyman, this straw man of an argument to say that, you know, if you put a trans person in a trans woman in a woman's bathroom or in a woman's facility, homeless shelter, then something terrible is going to happen. When we see there is data that underscores the fact that trans women are being murdered at an unbelievable rate. Another quote, under the Department of Housing and Urban Development rule change, homeless shelter operators could create a policy to consider an individual's sex for the purposes of determining accommodation within such shelters and for the purposes of determining sex for admission to another facility, any facility or portion thereof. And finally, nearly 1/3 of transgender Americans who responded to a 2015 survey have experienced homelessness in their lifetime. So this is an extremely serious event and a rule change. And what it's going to force trans individuals to do, trans people to do, trans women to have to go in order to get out of the cold. They will have to go to an all-male facility because their government documents, right? They're going to go all the way back to their government documents, probably before their sex change, probably for their gender change. And they're going to be forced to live and to go to shelters based on what's on that document. So it's adding insult to injury. It's clearly it's just one of the unnecessarily cruel things that this administration is doing. I've got stories back to back today that demonstrate the level of cruelness that this government is operating in. For the most part, it is highlighted, it's exacerbated by the Trump administration, but some of it has carried over from the Obama administration. And you'll see that in the next story. But this story right here is 100% laid at the feet of Donald Trump and all the conservative Christian evangelicals who are obsessed with sexuality, obsessed with their definition of morality, their definition of what is traditional, and absolutely rob anyone else of the opportunity to define what traditional is for themselves, or to define their own sexual morality, or to define their own sexual identity. And they want to compel the rest of the world, the rest of the nation and the world to live according to their interpretation of their religious text. That's what this is about. And as usual, the victims in this are the most marginalized people in our country, across the world. It never fails. When an evangelical Christian thing happens in this country politically, the victims are always some of the most marginalized people. 1 out of 3 transgender Americans will experience homelessness at some point in their lifetime. And now they have to choose whether or not to go to a facility with which they don't identify gender-wise, or stay out in the cold. God bless America, right?
If you love learning new things, you probably want to check this out. The David Pakman Show today is sponsored by Skillshare, and we're giving you 2 entire months of free access to Skillshare when you click the link underneath this video. Skillshare is a vibrant online learning community offering more than 25,000 video classes on just about anything you can think of. Get better at playing an instrument. Learn to use Photoshop. How to edit videos. They have classes on drawing, painting, business, cooking, nutrition, personal productivity, and I'm not even really scratching the surface. I recently took a great class on introductory watercolor painting. I'm still not good, but I am learning, and you can access the entire library of fun, easy to use online courses for free for 2 months by using the link underneath this video. 2 months of learning something that's totally new to you, something you want to get better at, something you already love, or you can get ahead in your career by learning new skills that will help you at your job. I've gotten a ton out of it. Pat has taken some courses that he's found really valuable, and I think you'll love it too. Get started for free by clicking the link under this video.